Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh, almost end of May. Hi, it's so good to be here with all of you. I am going live just a few minutes early because I'm always a little bit worried about the technical aspect. So I hope that this is working out for you. Um, Welcome to the end of the school year for a lot of people, or halfway through the school year, or not even close for some people. So we're in that weird situation where some teachers are thrilled to be done. Others are like, oh my gosh, we have such a long way to go. And others are just getting started. One of my friends just finished school on Friday, and I'm torn as usual. I love my students so much. I'm gonna miss them a ton, but I am also very ready for summer. So welcome to May's live stream. As always, we are going to start with some book recommendations. And oh my goodness, was I excited yesterday when I opened up my mailbox and I saw this. Woo! The new Jackie Woodson picture book. I just read it this morning and I want to reread it. It is so good. How can it not be? You can hear Jacqueline Woodson's voice in it, but it is all about those summers spent out on the street, on the stoop, with your friends, all of the things that make up summer magic. And I think we all have that bit of nostalgia, right, of thinking about what summers were like. I just love the storytelling in it and how she uses words to really paint the scene for us. And the illustrations are brilliant as well. So definitely be on the lookout for this one because it's so good. Great, like small moment story, poetry. It would be a great book for as well because really what she wrote was a poem and then it was illustrated. Two other books that I'm really excited about that also came yesterday. Well, I have many that I'm excited about, but some that I'm really, really excited about. This is from Charles Bridge. If you haven't checked out their smaller publisher, they do a lot of bilingual books, so Spanish, English, which I love. My own kiddos are in DLI, dual language immersion. So we're always looking for books. This is also storytelling math. And if you look at the back, you can actually see more of their books. So it's a perfect book for introducing different concepts. This one is really, really good for thinking about volume and area, for example. But that's not the only reason why I love it. It is about a kid who is Cherokee he finally gets to go sell his marbles at the Cherokee National Holiday. So, like, not only do you have English and Spanish and math, you also have Indigenous representation written and illustrated by Indigenous peoples. So, Art Colson is Cherokee, and Madeline Goodnight is Chickasaw Nation. So I feel like it's such a like trifecta book, like fantastic book to add, and you should definitely take a look at their other ones as well. Then you wouldn't think that I could get more excited. I got even more excited because, like so many other people, I have really tried to put the story of Thanksgiving into perspective for kids using the Wampanoag story. And I like every year, I'm like, I wish I had a really good picture book. Here's a really good picture book. Also from Charles Bridge. This is the story of the first Thanksgiving from a Native American perspective. And it is written by three Indigenous peoples. So Danielle Greendeer is Mashpee Wampanoag Nation. Anthony Perry is Chickasaw Citizen. Alex Bunton is Yupik and Unangan. And the illustrator as well is Anishinaabe. And it is all about like what really happened in that first harvest celebration. And I'm going to mispronounce it, Kipunamuk, the time of harvest. This would be perfect for any kind of teaching around Thanksgiving, etc. So this is a must add and a must read aloud. So excited about that one. I Instagrammed this yesterday because I feel like we don't have enough picture books that allow us to have conversations about bodily autonomy and this whole notion of like, I don't need to smile just because you're telling me to smile. And so I love Sophia in this book. And just this notion of like, no, I don't want to smile for school pictures. They're not very interesting, etc. And that my favorite is probably at the end where she does smile, and the way that they phrased it. It's also about dinosaurs. Um, on that final page, when she finds a bone, she says, "So then, only for herself and that majestic mandible of the megalodontus Scaulosaurus, Sophia smiled. Only for herself." And I just think like that's so powerful to teach kids. You don't owe the world your smile. I think we're so quick to like police the bodies of children, including their facial expressions. And this book is just such a good like conversation about like having your own boundaries and consent. So picture books are ruling my world. My brain is like going 90 miles a minute because it's the end of the year. I have 3 weeks left and there's so much to do. So graphic novels is really where I'm finding a lot of refuge. So I'm very, very excited about this one, Smaller Sister from Roaring Brook Press, also because it's middle grade. And it's about an eating disorder. Her older sister has anorexia nervosa, and it's about making new friends, moving schools, like, and it's all those things that kids sometimes are navigating, and it is really fantastic, very, very age appropriate. Another one that I'm very excited about comes out in June. Oh, I Instagrammed this and then it got shared on Twitter, and boy, did a lot of people get mad about trans representation in picture books or in graphic novels. So this one is definitely for high school. It's more mature, but it is all about the author coming back and talking to his younger self before he transitioned. And it's just really powerful. My teen has been reading it and really loved it as well. So, Welcome to St. Hell. That was me in high school, my trans teen misadventure. So, I just think about representation and having books that really show kids like what they're going through is normal. And there are other people who maybe have shared similar experiences, etc. Speaking of trans, I am also reading What's the Tea? Juno Dawson came out with this book is Gay, which is also great for high school enough, which was fantastic, so well written about their own gay experience. Since then, they have transitioned. About 6 years ago, and so this is really written conversational style, a guide to all things trans and or non-binary, and it's really fabulously written. It also highlights trans and non-binary people throughout history. There's other people's experiences, but definitely more mature, but it's really, really powerful. So there's the book recommendations. A couple questions that came in. One was about curriculum maps, and the other one was like inventory books, reading levels, and summer plan, rest and learning. So I'll start with kind of the easy one, which is inventory of books and reading levels. So, do I have an inventory of books? I don't. I did at one point. I had a fabulous group of kids go through and scan all my books for bookstores. And then I realized that the system, unfortunately, was unsustainable because I don't check out books in the, regular sense. And the kids that would use the checkout system were the kids that would bring the books back. And the kids that didn't use the checkout system were the ones that wouldn't bring the books back. So I feel like I ended up losing as many books, but I had now created a lot more work for myself. And that just was not. I'm teaching. When kids are checking out books, I'm teaching. I'm not a librarian. I can't stop and put everything, to the side while I'm checking out. And I was like, oh, I could teach kids to self check out, which I know some teachers have done really well. But I also have kids coming in like from other classes checking out books. And it just became like a big thing in my head. So, how do I know what books I lose? Well, usually when I go to find them, I do a clean out and a reorganization every summer of my library. I go through and I just do like, okay, what books have not gotten discovered? What books are falling apart? What books do I now only have 3 of in the series and I'm missing the first book? Etc. And I'll make a wish list, and that wish list is usually long. And I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't want to pay for all these books, so I will scour. I always have an Amazon wish list going that I will share with home adults in case if they want to donate a book to our classroom. These are the books that need to be replaced, and that has been really, really successful and helpful, and I so appreciate it. I certainly also scour like Goodwill or any other like cheaper places, and then sometimes I'm like, I guess that book just will not be replaced. If it's like a high interest book, then I we'll usually pony up money. Like depending on the year, we also get some money from my school. Not every year, and so sometimes I'm like, I'm going to use this for new books, or I'm going to use it to replace books. So it's a little bit of a crapshoot in that sense. Reading levels, as far as like when I'm pulling like guided reading groups, I don't really look at the level of text. I look at like the skills that I'm trying to teach instead, and then just knowing the kids. I mean, I have their data, so I can certainly pull out and take a look at a text. If I really have to have like a very specific just right text, I use something like Newsella, for example, or some other like tool that will give me some shorter stories. Um, what I find though with kids also in small group, and I teach seventh graders, right? So my span is a little bit like I tend to have more kids who are like in the fourth and fifth grade reading level than maybe like the second and third grade reading levels, if we really want to put those kind of levels on kids. And so, like, most texts are fairly accessible. What is a bigger barrier for my students is vocabulary. Like, they can read the word, but they might not know what it means. And they're so trained to like hide that because that's seen as a weakness in their eyes. And so I purposefully will pull text where I'm like, there might be like words that they don't know here because then we're going to navigate it together. And I really like, again, thinking about that vulnerability of readers. I really want to put them in situations where they can see like it's safe to say, I don't know what that word means, even if it starts as a small group. And hopefully that will bleed into their overall like reading strategies. Especially teaching middle schoolers, where so much of how they carry themselves is all about like the bravado piece of, just like, this isn't, I'm a good reader. What do you mean? Or, "Ugh, I don't care about reading. And that's why I'm not even going to try. And reading sucks," right? Like that whole bravado. I want to offer them opportunities where they can navigate text that is a little bit harder with an adult that cares. And that can hopefully show them that, there's nothing to be ashamed of, which is hard. It's hard when you're 13 and your reading skills are not where you would like them to be. And all of a sudden, everything curriculum wise is really hard. So curriculum maps. I love curriculum maps, but that's because I have full control over mine. I do not love curriculum maps when somebody says, "Here's what you're going to teach, and everybody needs to be on this map with fidelity, and you better." I worked for a principal that was that way, where it was like, I better be able to walk into your room and you're teaching the same lesson as the two other fifth grade teachers next to you. And I was like, that is not my jam, because we have to be able to teach the kids in front of us. And that means that sometimes we have to veer off the map. But I do love a good map. So I will do a like mini PD on this probably too, because I want to show you what I'm talking about. That's the one thing I don't love about these live streams. Like, I'm such a visual person, like, look at this. And here you're just stuck with my face. So, first of all, the biggest thing that I end the year doing, which we have our seventh grade ELA department meeting set up we have a work day after the last day of school. We take stock of the year together. What worked well? What did not work? What are we missing? What would we love to see that our kids haven't had a chance to experience? And we just have that big conversation. So, the way that my department works is that we have some common units throughout the year, but we are not fully aligned at all times. And that's very much on purpose, because we teach in different ways and we have different like projects that we love to do with kids. And we have a little bit different focuses as far as how we connect to some of the standards. But because we want to be unified in the sense of like it shouldn't be an educational lottery, kids have we sit down and we look at our standards. So we have 8 standards that we have to teach within a year, and we do those multiple times. So we look down and we'll say, like, quarter one, what standards will we focus on? So we might dabble in like many standards, but like, what are the ones we're going to assess for sure? And so we'll sit down and then we'll look at projects and go, okay, which projects have we done in the past that we really loved? What are our like common units that we want to continue to develop and do? And what are standards that we maybe like don't need to assess and that we can kind of play with? We also have a spiral approach. And so, for example, standard one, which is our big analysis standard and probably the hardest standard in seventh grade. And it's all about like deep analysis of text and media and like coming up with new inferences and why does your evidence prove your claim and all that stuff, like that critical thinking. That one comes up like every quarter. Um, but like standard 5, which I'm working on right now in our debate unit, which is like pulling evidence to support your claim, like that one only comes up in quarter 2, and in our inquiry unit, and it comes up here in this final unit. So we're always making sure that like a standard is assessed multiple times throughout the year. So this year, I know we have talked about like we really want to add in a play at some point, because kids don't know how to read plays and sometimes they have to. We also want to strengthen our grammar and spelling instruction, which I feel like that's always the case. We have not found a great way to teach grammar without like sacrificing something else and like making it a big thing. We haven't seen the transfer that we would love. So that's stuff, something we're playing around with. um, so once we kind of done that together, then I also get feedback from students. And I've done it in different ways. Like I've done like a survey, I've done just like a conversation. My students this year seem to be really into conversation. So I think I'm honestly just going to kind of pose some questions as we head towards the end of the year, just like what were units that you really loved? What were units that you felt you didn't love? But here's the thing, I have been doing that type of conversation after every unit. I get feedback. And so, and I have found that to be better than just an end of year survey. Don't fret if you're like, I haven't asked my students, I should have. Like, you can still do an end of year survey. But when kids are like done with the exploration that we've been invested in, it is such a wonderful time to stop and pause and say, okay, what worked? What didn't? What would you change? If you had to redo this whole entire experiment, what could I do better? And they have the best feedback often. And not, it's funny because my kids are so generous. They're always like, yeah, it was pretty good, Mrs. Rip. Like they usually don't have like a unit where they're like, this sucked. But they'll talk about length. They'll talk about like the different components that we did, some stuff that was confusing, stuff that could be done better. And they always have ideas for me to tweak. If you haven't done that, then yeah, an end of year survey is really helpful. Like in the past, I've even like listed out if I've done it like an electronic survey, I've listed out like all the different units that we've done. We talk about it as we kind of answer the questions. But what I've also found with 7th graders is that, like, the unit that most kids loved will also be the unit that most kids hated, right? Like, so it's like 50% love this part and 50% hated this part. So it's always a little bit hard to like figure out how can I use this, but I look for trends and patterns and ideas, and I try to take that into consideration. So now imagine a Google Doc. What I do for my curriculum map. Is I break it down by quarter. So we're a quarter system. And I list the dates out, the weekly dates. I usually have about 9 weeks per quarter. And then I can start to plop in units. And I have units that I love. Like the way I start my year, I love because it's all about like it sets the foundation for identity work and exploration. And it's about reading and writing and getting to know each other and building community and how can we function within our space, and what does being safe feel like and mean, like, and who are you and who am I and who are we and all of that stuff. So that's like always my first 2 weeks. And then we dive into writing, because we've kind of already gotten our reading going. So what I look at when I start to plop in units is about 2 to 3 week units. So I can usually do 3 or so in a quarter. Then I start to look at, what are the standards, obviously, like what standards do I want to use? Do I want to really hit and assess? How do I want to assess them? And then I do a balance about how they're learning. So if my first 2 weeks or week and a half, depending on when we start during the week, is all about like talking, okay, then we're going to move to some writing and we're going to do a lot of writing. We're still going to do a lot of talking and moving and whatever, but we're going to do a lot of writing. The next unit, I want to be something totally different then. Like, um, I want them to be up and in front of each other and moving and doing things like that. And so, like the next unit after our writing unit is our read aloud, and that's like we're activating different skills. So when I'm mapping throughout the year, I'm really trying to see like what how are kids historically at that time, are they really good at being really focused and like working on their own thing, or are they much more chatty and need like that energy infused into the curriculum? If I'm doing writing, how can I still focus on reading, like So I'm like thinking historically, like, what do kids need at this time? But planning like a whole year like that really allows me to see the flow of the year. And I think that that's been so important for me in how I fix, like, how I set up the year. Okay, we've been really focused on typing and being on our computers for this unit. Okay, the next unit really needs to be off screen and much more community and face to face. And maybe we're handwriting and maybe we're doing speeches or debates or we're infusing our voices. And so that variety is really important to me. And we tend to switch between a reading and writing lens, which I've mentioned before in one of these lives. We go from like focusing on reading, then to writing, then to reading, then to writing. Big just to like switch it up. I also talk to some of our other teachers. So we have geography in seventh grade, and it tends to be writing heavy, or it was more so in the past. So I will talk to other teachers like, what are you doing at this time? And just get like a feel for their curriculum map too. Because if they're sitting and doing a massive inquiry project in geography, then I don't want to put my inquiry project at the same time. And I also want to make sure that I'm not doing the same kind of skills. Like, how can I complement what they're doing? So this is all stuff I tend to sit and putz with over the summer because it like gets me excited and dreaming for the next year. And so then I like sketch out units in this Google Doc. So it's just like weeks, unit, and like what are the focuses. And I'll check in with special ed and like anyone who's attached to my room. I'll be like, here's what I'm thinking for the year, and I throw it their way. And it's just like a 2-page document. And they give me some feedback. Then the kids show up. And all of a sudden, the fictitious children that I had so beautifully planned for completely change our plans. Although that's not 100% true. But I think it's really important that during the year, even though I have potentially mapped out the year, and I can say, like, here's where we spiral, here's our learning targets, here's what kids are going to be able to do once they're out of this unit, here's where they get practice, here's the new learning, etc. Because those are the things that I'm sitting and thinking about. I also want to make sure that I bring kids into the process. And so often, before we start a new unit, I'll heads up them and just say like, hey, we're going to be diving into this read aloud. Like, what has worked well, what has not? Here's how I'd like you to show off your learning. What do you need for that? What ideas do you have? And really bring them into the process. So even looking at like my curriculum map for this year, like my original version, which I loved, I was so proud of when I did it in like June or whenever I did it, that changed because once I got to know the kids and their needs, then it changed. And that's why I love flexible curriculum maps, because while I can sit and plan for these fictitious children, when the actual children get in front of me, I have to change. Like, that's the adaptability. And that's a hard part. Like, it's the exhilarating and exhausting part of being a teacher, right? Like, oh, best laid plans, that's not going to work. And so I also encourage you, if you have administrators who are very like lockstep or new, like, I'm going to have a new administrator this year and I'm so sad, or this coming year, my principal's amazing and she's going, up in the district, a new job, but I'm so sad to lose her because she's been incredible. She's the reason why I'm at my school and have stayed at my school. So I'm a little bit nervous, which makes sense. That's a whole nother like live stream right there. How to navigate getting a new administrator when you love your current one and everything they do. But I think, like, for me, it's very important that I can show them my vision of the year, that I can like foresee some of the questions they're going to have as far as like, how is this review? How is this new learning? How is the spiral approach going to be? What are they going to be producing? How are they going to be growing as learners? What standards are we hitting? What are the learning targets? And so for me, that's been really important. It also just allows me to rest my own brain, because that way I can go into a unit and I can say, okay, I have 3 weeks for this unit, like the debate unit I'm doing right now. And I break it then down. I do a unit plan just like I do a curriculum map, day by day by day. I've shared tons of those here in Patreon, so you can totally see how my brain works. And then I link, like, what are the specific learning targets for each day? How am I building up their knowledge so that they can get to this final showcasing of their learning. And that has really also helped my students, because I constantly am thinking about what are the small increments rather than trying to like sit and piece stuff together. So when I map a unit, maybe that's what my mini PD needs to be on, curriculum map to unit map, right? It's just this process of like breaking everything down and then realizing like, Okay, I want to teach them this, but I don't have the resources. Okay, that's something I need to pull. And when am I going to pull that? And who can I help? Who can help me? Who can collaborate? What ideas do I have from the past? So this year has been exhausting. It's also been amazing, but it's been so exhausting because I did a lot of like unit planning and a lot of refining of resources and wanting to make things better, especially because I had kids that came in who had pretty much been like not in school since March 2020, and then kids who had like flourished during COVID. So not my spread wasn't just like this year. I felt like it was like this, right? Like I had kids that were super ready to be challenged. Everything was great. Like give me everything you got. And then I had kids who were like, I am so out of the school mode, I don't even know how to function within a space. I don't know how to like navigate anything. Like I am still in fifth grade mode when COVID shut them down. And so that was a lot to navigate. And so having these unit plans really helped me center my thinking. And also now, like the unit I'm doing right now, I'm like, hey, Pernille, last year you did a really good job planning this unit. So there are also units where I'm like, it just needs like small tweaks, and I'm okay with that. So I don't know if that helps with like the whole idea of curriculum mapping and just giving you some ideas. So the final question I wanted, because I want to be super cognizant of time, is how do you balance like resting and learning over the summer? Um, I guess so. Like the first thing that came to mind was boundaries. I don't want to work all summer because I want to come back and be excited. And for me to be excited, I need to step away. And so, being a two teacher household, we have had to set very clear boundaries. So, for example, my school year ends on June 7th. June 8th is my final workday. I'm doing some PD planning June 15th and 14th and 15th, and then I'm done. And I'm done for a good time. I am focusing on my own professional development. I'm doing the book love summer book club. I love it. I've already read the books that they're using, but I don't care because I can't wait to like discuss with people. But why I'm so excited about it is that it's PD on my own time. I get to decide if I want. I'm a morning person. I get up really early before my household. I like to sit with my cup of tea and listen to smart people. And so for me, when I can self-select, when I'm doing like professional development and dreaming and pulling on ideas, that's my favorite kind of summer. But I also very purposefully step away, and I'll probably put a poll into like, do we want to pause live streams for over the summer and just switch to like videos? Also, because I'm like, I'm gonna be in Denmark, I'm gonna be home. So like it gets a little goofy. But like I allow myself to step away, and I like try to really listen to myself and my needs. I always have a couple PD books that I'm super excited to read over the summer because that's where I feel like I have space to do it. So I'm reading Textured Teaching by Lorena Herman this summer, and I want to read finally. I've had it for a year. Liz Kleinrock's book, Start Here, Start Now. I've also purposely still stayed away from those books because I'm writing my own edition of a book, and I don't want to accidentally like be infused by their ideas, and like that's really hard when I'm writing. Um, but I really want to like plan for rest and joy. And so July, I tend to like not really do anything. Late July, I will start putzing in my classroom. My kids are in like a day camp because they're so excited and they are so sick of each other by then. So like that week when they're gone, like I'm gonna go into my classroom, I'm gonna do like my library, and then I'm gonna leave again and like shut the door. And then in August is when like my PD starts. I think on June 17th we have our incoming seventh graders, and I volunteered to do stuff with them. And then I have like 2 days of PD. So I plan for like blackout time because I feel like the last 2 years has been an incredible amount of professional learning and development and having to figure stuff out. And I need rest, and I refuse to feel guilty about that. So while I may not do as much professional learning as some people, I'm okay with that. And I might do more than other people, and I'm okay with that too. So I would say consider what you need. If you need rest, rest. If you have the energy and the space to take on new learning, take it on, but do not feel guilty for whichever choice you make. Because I think as teachers, we already carry so much guilt. And so to be able to say, this is what I need, and my needs come first now, I don't think there's anything bad with that. And so my husband and I have talked about it too. Like we're going home to Denmark, and I plan that we go for 4 weeks, and we try to disconnect. I'll still like post stuff, but it's all like, am I inspired to do so? And there are days where I am not inspired to do anything, and I'm okay with that. So I hope you can also map out your summer and think about if it is your summer, or whatever time you have, and think about like it's okay to not constantly be learning and to recognize how much we learned in the last year. Like the last year and the year before that, we have done nothing but professional development. They might not have given us credit for it. They might not have given us hours for it, but like I have never developed myself so much in the last 2 years. So I'm okay with saying this summer is about rest and reading and bike rides and cups of tea and walks on the beach in Denmark, because I don't have a beach here in Wisconsin, and doing the things that I need to do in order to show up and feel good on September 1st when those kids walk in through our space. I hope today's live stream was helpful. Leave me questions, comments, all that stuff, all your stuff. What are your plans for the summer if you have summer? How are you protecting yourself? What questions do you have? How can I help? I'm here to help. I really appreciate all of you showing up and just being a part of this community. I'm learning from you. It's so exciting. Bye. This is funny. It won't end it.